post.co.ug. Many of these stories happen to feature there, including those that you may not hear here. Continuing with the bulletin, farmers and food specialists have dragged the Kenyan government to the East African Court of Justice over a decision to lift the ban on the genetically modified organisms on the agricultural and food markets. These want Kenya, like the rest of East African member states, to maintain the status quo of a ban on GMOs.
At the East African Court of Justice, where farmers and experts in food science expressing their contempt and charting oneness in fighting the importation of genetically modified organisms, a move that has been defied by Kenyan government.
President Ruto, please back off our food.
Through their legal team led by David Kabanda, the petitioners want the Kenyan government to toe the same line with other East African member states on banning the importation and application of GMOs in agriculture and food markets.
Uganda has not allowed GMOs. The law came to parliament and even the president did not sign the law. Twice, 2 times, he refused to sign. Tanzania the same, Rwanda the same, Burundi is the same. Why should Kenya allow this monster to come into East African community? It should stop.
According to the petitioners, allowing GMOs by the Kenyan government is detrimental to the lives of the entire East African region, given the fact that Kenya is a trigger of trade, especially to the landlocked countries.
We have enough food, we have enough resources. The problem is not that we are not growing enough food, we do.
Farmers are wondering why the East Africans cannot stick to their natural ways of cultivating, manufacturing and preserving food.
And when the GMOs are allowed to come into East African region, it will mean that we shall not be having food sovereignty and seed sovereignty. Secondly, our cultural heritage and food heritage will be threatened. Reason being, we shall not be having our indigenous food varieties.
The controversy around GMOs in Uganda began in 2017 when President Museveni refused to assent to the GMO bill after raising 12 issues. It was then rephrased in 2019 under the National Biotechnology and Biosafety Bill, which was also rejected by MPs on fear that it would enfranchise Ugandan farmers, citing no ready market. Henry Mugenyi, Adam Nuamanya, NBS, Live at 9.
And in our local news wrap, the Kampala Capital City Authority has partnered with the local coalition Accelerator in efforts to support children and refugees under the Joint Action Plan 2. The Ministry of Health has received over United States dollars 560 million from the Global Fund towards the fight against AIDS, malaria and tuberculosis for the next 3 years, while District Public Service Commission have been blamed for the poor services in the country.
Under the Joint Action Plan, the local coalition Accelerator Uganda, in collaboration with KCCA, will scale up support to youth, refugees, women and children. This will focus on key areas of improving livelihoods, education and health.
We shall also be looking at how do we support the proper with rescue of the children on the streets and also settle them back to where they're supposed to be, in addition to supporting various issues of cases of children in contact and conflict with the law.
As part of efforts to ensure accountability under the JAP2 project, stakeholders will be expected to submit quarterly reports.
We have a responsibility to play a critical role of midwifing and molding shapes and forms and governing the practices of localization and how they will impact society.
Whatever we do, whatever we plan to do for the community, let's know that we are not experts.
Also, in other news, during a national dialogue meeting in Kampala for all stakeholders meant to determine mode of implementation of this project, the Director of Health Services at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Daniel Chabayinze, emphasized that the $560 million funding will be directly managed by the Health Ministry. This is aimed at averting concerns over funds accountability.
They are not giving money to implementing partners. It's government who finds and secures sub-recipients to implement. That's different from some governments. The biggest contributors to the Global Fund actually are the same governments which also have parallel budgets where they give money.
The chairperson of the Program Development Resource Mobilization Committee of the Global Fund, Dr. Flavia Mpanga-Kagwa, stressed that monitoring and accountability will be key during implementation of the project.
We expect the Auditor General, and he indeed audits these funds as well, the ones that go through the public sector, even the private sector.
Issues around community-led monitoring and community engagement, which is critical in the fight. And that's why I mentioned that even beyond just making sure that we bring funds into this country to support the government of Uganda in the fight against the 3 diseases.
And from Iganga, the Minister of Public Service, Wilson Muruli Mukasa, has blamed the persistent poor state of service delivery on corrupt officials from various district service commissions. The minister accuses commission members of nepotism and recruitments that do not follow the right procedures and are based on bribery.
We have issued guidelines and there are principles to follow. That once we have worked out a structure and in the full establishment of that structure, let's say we need maybe 300 people, then we say, okay, depending on the money available in the treasury, we say, okay, out of 300 people, the money we have is for wage, can cater for 200. Then we give the okay, you must recruit. And therefore you must recruit the 200.
Henry Mugenyi, Eric Wakabi, NBS Live at 9.
Enriched from the loot made centuries ago, European institutions like the British Museum are home to the world's most valuable artifacts, 90% of which were taken from Africa during colonial times. The African continent is now raising up to demand for their return, and Uganda has now joined the queue. But what difference will they make when they are brought back home? We explore these and more in our segment, Around and Beyond.
Africa is well known for its rich culture and diversity evidenced through art. It's a window into the cultural life of everyday society and carries substantial indicators that nurture a better understanding of ideas, expressions, and society's philosophical concerns.
We hold a memory of knowledge for which we can trace about our past, about our history, about the science, about creativity and civilization of our society. We must be aware that development was a process and our people were developing, and for them to develop, they were making things.
The colonial times, however, dented Africa's artistic aspect, with many of these priceless artifacts looted and taken into Britain and Germany amongst other colonial masters, which also enabled their rule deeply sit within Africa.
They knew the power of the society. Some of them were through objects. So come and study these people. Understand, what do they do with these objects? If we remove these objects, we can disempower them.
Many of the objects that are in Cambridge from the early 20th century reflect the interests of the new Christian elite in Buganda who wanted to divest the shrines of their power and to build a centralized political kingdom with the new Protestant aristocracy at the center.
This is how European institutions like the British Museum and the Louvre are home to the world's finest art, from which they have reaped the largest market share of the museum market that stands at about $96 billion.
So after independence, the British, as I was mentioning, put up new limits, new regulations, new procedures, and new institutions that protected the commercial, economic, and cultural value that they gained from their African empire to enrich themselves. The reason why people go in great numbers to London, the reason why London is a cultural capital of the world, is a legacy of the slave trade and of colonialism in Africa and Asia.
There is a wave looming across Africa, agitating for the return of what initially belonged to the continent in form of artifacts, with countries like Nigeria having registered success.
African Union lobbying for African countries to ensure that the objects that were taken illegal and which are very significant, the civilization and for the development for holding memory for which civilization of humanity, of cultural, historical and scientific knowledge are embedded should be returned.
Uganda is no exception. Her journey to this return dates way back into 1962 when lawyer and then Cambridge University student Eke Mayanja wrote a letter to the then Vice-Chancellor of the University of Cambridge demanding for the return of the regalia of the war god Chibuka.
And Mayanja said, let these objects be brought for the public to come and see, and they are placed at the Ghana Museum. The Ghana Museum has cared for these objects since 1962.
50 years later, the Tourism Ministry is said to be mooting a project to have valuable artifacts returned, including horns, drums, the Luzira head and other worship regalia that are believed to be sitting in European museums. Professor Derek Peterson, a historian, tells us how far they have gone.
In November, colleagues from this museum and myself came to Cambridge to look through the whole inventory of the Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology. We spent days and days going through objects that were shown to us, looking at them, assessing them, getting a sense of what they were, trying to make a kind of judgment about their interest. We've given a list to the Cambridge colleagues, and we're waiting now for a negotiation to take place in which Cambridge colleagues and ourselves, as the leaders of this project, will develop a plan to bring those objects back.
Uganda's museum industry market size is not known, but the top leadership argues the return of these artifacts shall be significant in not only the number of tourists coming into the country, but also fill historic information gaps.
So if we want more tourists, those beautiful objects made by our grandparents, which are kept in the stores there, this will be brought and made accessible through the museums. We will have a projection because for this year alone, just after the COVID, the number of tourists at the museum increased sporadically, where within a month we were able to receive 30,000 visitors at the museum alone.
The return of these objects is a door, it's an opening that allows Ugandans particularly, and also outsiders like me, to see what was lost, to see what was stolen from Ugandans. Not only the objects, but ways of thinking about the world, mentalities.
But renowned artist Noah Wamala Nyanzi has reservations on this move. He says the Ministry of Tourism has ignored the museum industry for long and is skeptical of their ability to preserve this heritage.
The last 35 or so years have been stable, but has there been any deliberate effort to collect what really matters to Uganda, which is within our borders and within our reach? Have we collected them and presented them in a way they should be presented? We need to invest in training curators and even facilities that would host such important aspects.
This repatriation is just one of the many developments that could transform the museum industry in Uganda, though its success is heavily dependent on the willingness of the European parties. Olivia Nakalembe, NBS, Live at 9.
Introducing the PrimeLearn app. You can now top up your child's classwork using PrimeLearn. Get access to elaborate lesson videos, exercises, and revision tests by expert teachers all over the country. From nursery to primary 7, all subjects and learning areas affordably based on the Uganda curriculum. Download the PrimeLearn app from Play Store or visit www.prime-learn.com. Learn ahead of others, anytime, anywhere.
Sparkle Salon knows that good grooming is not an option in the modern world. It's a basic need. a need which we have for over 2 decades mastered provision of by building a great team of professionals and never compromising on the quality of our products. A need that we exist for and are very serious about. We want to give you the look that you desire. We have created great ambiances and convenience for our clients at all of our branches at Oasis Mall, Garden City, Lugogo Mall, Forest Mall, and Acacia Mall. Sparkle Salon, inspired by your needs.
Today is a good day to draw up a new play. So start something. Be loud. Be extra.